Okay, we are
Okay, we are
live.
live.
Excited to be here
Excited
today.
to be here
Hello and
today.
welcome
Hello
to
and
another
welcome
live
to another
session with
live
me, your
session with
host,
me, your
Leslie
host,
Gadet,
Leslie Gadet,
self-care strategist,
self-care
helping
strategist,
ambitious
helping
women like
ambitious
you
women like
stop
you
managing
stop
stress
managing
and start
stress and
mastering
start
your
mastering
time,
your time,
energy, and
energy,
well-being.
and well-being.
So today,
So
really
today,
excited
really
because we have
excited
a special
because we have a
guest with
special
us.
guest with us.
I'll be speaking
I'll be
with Liz.
speaking with Liz.
Liz helps
Liz helps
exhausted
exhausted
professional
professional
moms transform
moms
their
transform their
mindset and recover
mindset
from
and
burnout.
recover from burnout.
I'm hearing a
I'm
background
hearing
noise.
a
I don't know,
background
Liz.
noise. I
Maybe
don't
you
know,
could
Liz. Maybe
mute yourself,
mute
and that maybe
yourself,
you won't
and
hear
that
the
maybe you won't
reverb.
hear the reverb.
So you want to try and mute yourself? Okay, great. All right, so there we go. I don't hear myself again. So Liz helps exhausted professional moms transform their mindset and recover from burnout. She uses cognitive, behavioral, and recoding techniques. Ooh, sounds exciting. To reconnect them with their authentic selves, empowering them to live more fully by uniting mind, body, and soul. Her mission is to help you create a life of purpose, stay focused on your goals, boost productivity, and experience renewal. Liz has spoken on international stages and was awarded Most Compassionate Coach. With a track record of guiding hundreds to live vibrant and empowered lives, Liz is dedicated to helping you achieve lasting transformation. Liz, thank you so much for carving out time to join me today on this important subject around mindset. It's a topic, while often it seems like a buzzword, mindset, it has such a profound impact on every aspect of our lives. So before we dive into the questions, though, I'd really love for you to share a little bit about what you do and why mindset is so critical to our success in life, especially as it relates to burnout.
Oh, absolutely. And I think my sound is okay now. So I do hear a little, yeah. Absolutely. It's so important. One of the things I learned, and I think this is how I really got deep dive into it, and that's what I really enjoy working with people, not only because of my own journey, having recognized that there were things that were playing out from my childhood that really affected my performance, even though I was successful at many things, but there were other things, right? And you knew you could go to that next level. What I realized when I sort of took a look back into my corporate world, when I used to do leadership skills training and customer service, sales, time management, I'd go back and talk to the participants, and some of them were doing well, some of them needed a little tweak or reminder, but then there were others that fell off completely and really reverted back to their old habits. And going through my old journey, I realized that it was mindset, that no matter how much skills training we do or attitude training or knowledge and any of these kinds of training, what it really boils down to, that's only 20% of the equation. 80% is mindset, right? So it's really forming those habits. And that's what I realized in myself as well. And it's those neural pathways. It's having that growth mindset where we accept challenges as opportunities as opposed to avoiding them, and recognizing that we put effort into things, it's really going to pay back for us in the long run. One of the biggest things too that I always tell my clients is accept feedback. If I give you feedback, it's not criticism, it's feedback. And if you take it as you're not going to listen to it, that's a fixed mindset. So that's why I'm really excited about the work that I do. And it's really rewiring the brain, getting them to create new neural pathways and practicing it over and over again. So it becomes automatic, just like tying your shoes, driving a car, etc. And I'm sure we've heard those things as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
One of the
absolutely.
things
One of
that
the
you were
things that you
saying,
were saying,
yeah, so if you wouldn't
yeah,
mind
so if you wouldn't
muting.
mind muting.
So what I was finding, and I think this is what we're going to have to do, because for whatever reason, StreamYard is playing tricks with us today. But what I found really with mindset, which I feel is so important, is it has become a buzzword, but it really is important because if you took the time to think about it, we're thinkers. People think all the time. We're always like analyzing things. So if we have, as an example, you just talked about feedback. Maybe growing up, we had people giving us what they thought was feedback, but really we felt was criticism, and we never addressed that, how we felt about it, we're going to take that through into our adult life. And so when we get in those situations, especially if we're in groups of people and someone's, mentions something about what you've done, a lot of the time, and I mean, I'm guilty of this. I've done this before, way back in the day, where I would think of the feedback as being a criticism of me personally. And instead of looking at it from a perspective of, oh, I'm just really giving you feedback on the project that you're working on. It has nothing to do with you as a person. But if you grew up that way, believing that any of the feedback you got was criticism, and it could have really been outright criticism, that you took that and carried that into your adulthood, and then now it's like now you have to learn to unpack that. And I always say, look at the person, like the source. Where's it coming from? Like, especially you as a coach, Liz, you're working with your clients. You want the best for your clients. So you're not going to give them feedback as a form of criticism, because they're not going to grow. And then that doesn't help your business. That doesn't help them. That doesn't help them to move on. That's your whole purpose, is to help them to live better lives. So it really, like, looking at the source. Where's it coming from? Does this person have my best interest at heart? Well, obviously in a coaching environment, you hope that is the truth. And that's what you do. This is the environment that you're creating, that safe space for them to share and be able to feel like, oh yeah, I'm not criticizing you as a person, as a human being. That's nothing to do with it. It's really what I'm giving you some feedback on some of the things that we've talked about, and help you move forward and move past that. So I really appreciate that you shared what you shared. And now I want to get into the questions. I really feel like the questions are really important, especially this topic. I feel, again, it is, something that, again, people look at as a buzzword, but when we really can dig and really uncover it, what it really means for each and every one of us, if we look at it personally, I think that, could look at it as not a buzzword, but as something that we can get curious around. So many of us experience self-doubt or feel held back without always recognizing where that's coming from. So how can someone identify their limiting beliefs, that might be shaping their mindset and holding them back from achieving their goals?
Well, usually I do this in a safe environment with them during coaching. So, if I'm saying something and somebody's going to try this, recognize that maybe start with something small, don't start with something traumatic. But I usually get them to kind of go back to that moment. What is it that they're feeling? Let's say that they don't feel like they're being heard, for example. So it's kind of going back to that moment in their childhood, sometime between the age of 0 to 7, and taking a look at when you were trying to speak your mind, when you were trying to use your voice. Were you told think before you speak? And now you feel like you're freezing and you're paralyzing, and that's creating doubt for you, in terms of holding you back from standing up in a meeting and sharing your ideas and opinions. And I think once people recognize, what was that moment? Was it something that someone said? Was it something that someone did? And then you attach that meaning that no matter what happens, I'm never going to be heard. I'm not heard. I'm not seen. And it's the meaning that we attach to that situation. Maybe the person didn't mean it in a bad way, like think before you speak. They probably wanted you to sort of use discernment and not just blurt things out, because children like myself with ADHD, and sometimes I still do that as an adult, will blurt things out, right, without thinking. And so recognize that the parents mean well. And I'm sure as a parent, I meant well to my kids. And I know I wasn't a saint either. But it's recognizing that, where did that come from? And so that you can have that aha moment and recognize that it was a meaning, something that you experienced, in order for us to, and I think this goes back to what you were talking about earlier, about the thinking and feeling. It's kind of, what meaning did you give experience, that moment? And once you understand, you can change the meaning, and then you can change your thinking, but more importantly is change how you feel about it, because we're feeling beings. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, 100%. And what I wanted to add to that, which I love, changing the meaning, the thinking, and the feeling. We actually have the power. I've had people say to me, "Oh, I can actually talk back to my inner critic," and I said, "Well, yeah, that's the voice in your head. You actually can say, I don't like what I'm thinking. I don't like what voice in my head, what you're saying to me. I don't want to believe that as being the truth." And you can actually step into changing your mind. But I do love that when you were saying too about a memory of just that small memory of think before you speak, or one of my most vivid memories of a child was I remember being around not a parent but an adult figure. I don't remember the situation, the scenario, but I remember being told, because I tend to talk fast at times, is something that I've been told even today. But I was told as a child, stop speaking so fast, you need to slow it down. And I took that to mean like, you don't want to, people don't want to listen to me. Like I'm not, what I'm doing is like, what I'm saying is stupid, and I'm talking too fast, and people don't understand me. And so that was something that I actually had to work through for myself. But yeah, like as a child, think before you speak. Someone might mean well, and most times most people mean well. Your parents usually mean well, but it's recognizing that and not looking at it as criticism. Now, there are people I have spoken to that have had parents criticize them, but that could come also from their parents' childhood experiences. And it's actually then being curious about, okay, what did my parents, yes, we're going a little deeper here, asking yourself, like, what did my parents actually grow up with, and trying to understand that, so that you can actually flip the script and say, okay, this is maybe what they grew up with. I don't actually have to make that my truth anymore. As a child, I was thinking that way. Great to have someone in your corner like yourself to be able to help you unpack those things. I go through that as well with my clients. It's really about those memories from our past. The clues are there. I believe going back to the past, even if you don't want to see some of the things that happen that you don't like, I feel like those clues in the past are really powerful clues. So yeah, thank you. So I know for you, uniting mind, body, and soul is a critical aspect of transformation. So, can you share how this holistic approach helps someone not only recover from burnout, but also build a more resilient, empowered mindset, especially since burnout often isn't recognized until someone's deeply in it?
Exactly, being deeply in it. Perhaps, like the first signs might be where you just want to stay in bed, you're exhausted, you're not passionate about what you're doing anymore, those kind of things. And when I talk about the holistic approach, mind, body, soul, is we really start with the mind, like we started to unpack. Like for me, when I burned out, it was because I really allowed the negative side to take hold. I was very self-critical, critical of others, critical of situations and circumstances, and that kind of festered, and that caused so much exhaustion that and I realized that caused my burnout. The other thing that caused my burnout is doing too much, wanting to succeed, wanting to, doing more and more and more. So the first step is really like, kind of funny because your parents wanted you to talk slower, and here I am. I'm going to tell people to slow down. The first step, especially for people, is to slow down, to really pause and take stock, recognize where are these beliefs coming from. Like you and I just said, it could be coming from your childhood. Maybe something if you take a moment and pause and take a look at where did it come from my childhood? Was it something that I learned from my parents? Shine a light on it and then start asking yourself questions. Is it true? If it's not true, what could be true? And what is it that I really want? Now, the next part is really slowing down so that you can think about also in terms of your nutrition, sleep, that's the physical part. The body part is the make sure you're getting exercise. If you haven't worked out for a while and you put that on the back burner because you were, burning out, you burned out because you were handling multiple projects, but it's really important to even start with 5-minute walk slowly and just take a moment And this is the soul part. Just take a moment to look at the clouds, take a moment to look at the trees. And if there's a wind, maybe you could see the trees, rustling. I mean, it's getting close to winter now, so maybe there's other things you can look at. And that's the soul part. Because when you start taking your exercise and nutrition and sleep, and start focusing on that step by step, little by little, every day, you're going to recover and things will come to you much more quickly. And of course, we all know the chemicals in the brain help, not only dopamine, but norepinephrine, serotonin, all these these chemicals, when we're exercising, stay within our system for a long time. So if you can get out in the morning, I know it's really hard when you're really burned out, but you just say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to go for a walk for 5 minutes. But the most important thing is just to congratulate yourself. Say, I did it. That wasn't so hard. Because oftentimes what happens is we tend to think everything is hard. This is hard. This is hard. Everything is hard. So if we start looking at what is it that I'm going to love doing today and just do that one thing, that's going to help. That helps your soul. Listen to music. Maybe it's classical music. 5 minutes. That's going to fill your soul. So that's where the mindset comes in, like we're talking about here, uncovering the limiting beliefs, challenging, facing those limiting beliefs by asking powerful questions. Where did it come from? And is it true? And then taking action with your body in terms of walking, maybe workout, make sure you're drinking lots of water. And I'm throwing a lot out here, but maybe start with one thing a week or two things or one from each area, like maybe 5-minute walk for a week, maybe something with your limiting belief for a week, and maybe listening to music for 5 minutes a day. And then the following, add something else. Okay, this week I'm going to add water. And then the following week, I'm going to start really dialing in my nutrition. So maybe just take it little by little by little rather than trying to do everything at once, because that is definitely not going to help someone, especially because I know myself. You try and dive in and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I hear you. And also one of the things when you were saying about the soul part about taking a moment to look around and be present in what's going on around you. One of the things, so I'm spirit, I'm a Christian. So one of the things I always do, like I look to God for guidance. And one of the things I wrote down for myself this week, just to remind myself when I get into those moments, it's fairly new that I started doing this, but I wrote a note saying, lift your eyes, Christian, look up. And that just meant for me to look up and remember that he's got my back. And so that was just something that I really loved starting doing that, because it makes me feel good to know that I'm not doing this alone. It could be the world around us it can influence us to do things, to be influenced or motivated or not motivated by watching other people, and maybe even comparing ourselves to others. And so that's where a lot of the limiting beliefs can come in, especially if, like you were saying, think before you speak. You might have a hard time getting into rooms with people and you become tongue tied. And then you might start thinking, well, I'm not good at this. I'm not going to be any good at doing this. So why bother trying? And it's really like we double down. We're so mean to ourselves. And a lot of the time we don't even say these things out loud. In fact, most of the things that are mean that we think about ourselves, we don't say them out loud. And so we're living with this mind in this voice inside our head that keeps circling around whenever something is happening. And we can either say, quiet it, and, empower ourselves to say, maybe that might have been how I used to think, but I don't think that way anymore. And I'm going to look for solutions rather than focus on the problem. And that's the thing that I've had to learn is, there were a lot of things that were going on with me just like in the last couple of years, but I learned, and through that learning I've been able to really help other people to embrace that we have the ability to change our story. We don't have to agree with the old the old language, the old chapters, the previous book, or as you know, the Bible has like the Old Testament and the New Testament. Well, that could be like, you know, volume 1 of our life, and we can now change, you know, move into volume 2. And I think that's really important to understand. So one of the biggest barriers I know that people face is fear of change, you know, especially, oh, you know, this life is, it can be easy sometimes, it can be really super hard at times, but when you're set something's really going well for you, but then change is upon you, and you might know that you need to shift your mindset and step out of your comfort zone so that you can make changes that you want to see in your life. But fear, real or perceived, can be so powerful, right? So how can someone get more curious around their fear, where it's coming from, so that they can take action to move past the fear and then take steps toward breaking free from their limiting beliefs?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that. Yeah, the fear of change, I believe when we first embark and say, "Oh, I have to change this," we get kind of excited, and then there's kind of like this optimism that we're going to be able to change, and then we start, like you said, we start moving towards the change, and then it becomes more difficult because we have to step outside of our comfort zone, so it becomes more uncomfortable. And maybe there's a fear of change, but because it could be a fear of the unknown. But oftentimes what I also tell my clients is that there's only two fears that we're born with. And there's the fear of not belonging, and that comes from our tribal days, that if we didn't go along with the elders, and that we'd be cast out and left on our own. And then, of course, we'd get eaten alive by lions or tigers or bears or whatever, right? And so that's where that comes from. So that kind of stayed with us. And the other fear that we have is fear of falling. We've done studies with babies, and they put them on this special tabletop so that there's like a ledge, and it looks like, you know, if they continue going along the glass, that they'll fall. And so they recognize that babies would always stop and wouldn't go past that. So those are the only two fears that we have. Anything else is imagined. It's not real. And I'll explain that in a moment. It's oftentimes a fear that we have of something we're afraid of from our past. Maybe a fear of, for example, that we don't want to be like our parent. And so when we think about that fear, we're pushing it into the future and the present. So instead of looking at, well, I don't want to be like my mom because she did this, then instead of saying, okay, well, that worked for my mom, and observe it. What exactly are you really afraid of? And observe it from a sort of a, 15,000, 20,000, like up above yourself, kind of looking down, and looking at what are you really afraid of. And then you'll see that there's nothing to really fear because you haven't done it, and it's really a projection into the future. So if that's not what you want in the future, then you can change that fear and just relax and say, well, maybe am I really excited about becoming a parent instead of fearing, I'm going to become like my mother? Maybe I'm excited about being a parent. And what is it that I'm excited about? I'm excited that I can, you know, my children are going to teach me about who I really am, and then I can really change along the way with them as well. And that might help. So I guess overcoming the fear of change and breaking free from the limiting beliefs is recognize that maybe it's something that you're fearing that really doesn't exist, and that you're just pushing into the future.
Yeah, yeah, because it's so funny because we have this beautiful thing between our ears that helps us to navigate life and to be curious and to discover things and to create things. And yet in the process of living life, we can get caught up because right now I think fear has become probably even more fear of change, or just the fear of whether that's change or failing or succeeding or becoming, not wanting to become like a parent, how your parenting style of your mom or your dad, or whatever that looks like for you. There's It's right in our face right now because of what we have, the internet. So the internet is showing us we have social media, and there's so much on there. And I think people get caught up in the stories that other people are telling them, and they forget that, okay, this is journey, this is their parenting style, or this is their belief. So if I don't believe it, I don't have to adopt it as my own, my own thinking. I don't have to. But on the other side to that too, if you're a new parent, I just had this conversation with someone in my podcast who's is going to be coming out soon. What was really cool about the conversation was she talked about how with parents and their kids, and how there's sometimes this disconnect about how, you know, we think of parenting and they think of being us parenting them, meaning we might think of something for them to do to make us feel more comfortable, whereas we're not taking into account that they have a young brain that is still developing. So I don't know why I brought that up, but I just thought it was something interesting and her conversation is going to be really amazing when the episode comes out. But I do understand that the fear of change can be really debilitating, especially for those of us who are control freaks, wanting to control the process every step of the way, and you can't see it. So you're like, no, I don't want to do this. And you fight it. And the thing is, nothing stays the same except things change. Change happens, but it doesn't mean that change stays the same. It means that something else can still happen. And that if you stay open and curious to discover something different, that change can be beautiful and it can be powerful. And so, yeah, anyways, thank you so much for answering that question. Now, final thoughts for today. We've almost completed another cycle around the sun for 2024. So what is one practical tool or strategy that you would recommend that our viewers can start using today to begin shifting their mindset so that they can step into a more authentic and empowered version of themselves to not only finish this year strong, but really to step in confidently into the next chapter of their lives?
Oh, awesome. And yeah, it's sort of, we're going to blink and it's going to be January 1st. Time seems to be going so quickly. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that there's going to be a great shift and a major change coming, but in a good way for everybody in the new year. And the one tool that I believe people should do is sit down and take a look at everything that you did really, really, really well this year, all those successes, and what is it that you want to do more of? So take a look at your current reality in terms of, you've done really well, because like you said earlier when you were talking about the fear of change, it's every moment, every day is different than it was yesterday, right? So take a look at where you are currently and where do you want to be, and recognize that where you were in the past and where you are today, you've made a lot of changes. So it kind of goes back, like, so you have nothing to fear, because I'm sure there's a lot of things you stepped into that you weren't aware of or unsure of or uncertain or unknown that you accomplished. So take a look at those and how can you do and what's working well for you, and do more of that, and then project it into the future. And the best thing to do, one of the things I coach my clients on, is to write a letter to your future self. If you want it to be a year from now, 2 years, whatever it is, what is it that you want? Where are you now, and what do you see happening? So write a letter to your future self, but that's not enough. You've got to actually visualize it, be able to visualize it and feel it. We all know the power of imagination. Athletes use that all the time. We've heard so many athletes use it, right? In terms of visualizing that shot, or, coming out of the blocks. So they know where they want to be in the future. They know what speed they need. So they're constantly visualizing it. So I guess it's like a 3-step process. Look at what you've succeeded at, recognize that you've overcome something, or that maybe there was a fear there. Maybe there was something that you weren't sure that you'd be able to do. And what is it that you want to do more of, that you feel is going to help you stretch? Because you've got to stretch. Don't stay complacent, because then you're going to avoid doing things. And write a letter to yourself, whether it's a year from now for that next chapter, but really start visualizing it in your mind and feeling it. How's it going to make you feel? Is it going to make you feel excited? Is it going to make you feel like you have momentum? Is it going to give you joy? Is it going to make you happy? Is it going to give you more peace, more calm, more quiet? Whatever it is that you really want in your life. So I hope that that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That helped greatly. So yeah, what I love too about the future self, especially and what you were saying first, like twofold. You were talking about the visualization piece. Like, there's been so many scientific studies done on this, and it's like your brain doesn't know the difference between you visualizing and daydreaming as if it's like as if it's possible, or if it's as if it's happening, to it actually happening. Like, the brain doesn't know, your brain doesn't know the difference. It can't really tell the difference. It just knows that if you're really into it and you're feeling it and you're visualizing it and you're feeling it in your body and you're getting right into that visualization, it's as if it is. And that's why you hear a lot of people say, like, live your life, whatever it is that you want to do, as if it's already happening. And I think what you were saying, like, especially with athletes, when you think about these super athletes that go to the Olympics, they don't just go out there and perform. Like, they don't just like, okay, I'm ready to do, like the 100-meter fly, or, in the swimming events, or I'm going to do I'm going to do the all around in the women's gymnastics, or whatever that looks like. Or, even like they've added all these different sports, like golf and basketball and all of these different sports. They're not just thinking, that they're just going to go out there and play each hole. They're actually visualizing each moment, like as a golfer, they're visualizing each, fairway to the putting, to everything, the entire way through, as if it's already happening or happened. So I think that's really powerful to note that. And then writing your letter to your future self, I love doing that, because it's really quite and because you forget, like, over time you'll forget that you wrote that letter, and all of a sudden in your email pops in this email. Well, if you do it that way digitally, like that's how I've been doing it. There is I think it's called futureself.org, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but I can find it and pop it into the comments, to write yourself a future self letter. And you can write it from the future, and you can actually time it, schedule it for when it's going to pop into your email. And what's really cool about that is that all of a sudden one day you wake up and you open your emails, and there's this letter from your future self, and you're talking to yourself as if, what a great year it's been, or what a great quarter it's been, or whatever that looks like. Wow, 5 years later, and I can't believe we're doing this, and I think that's something powerful about that. But again, like you were saying, you can't just write it for the sake of writing it, and then when you get the letter, be disappointed because none of that happened. You have to really visualize it, and then you have to take action. It's not the simple act of you hear about. It's not just about ask, receive, believe, receive. It's about ask, yes, okay, believe that it's possible for you, take actions, be open to receiving the things that come, but you have to be taking action. You can't just sit around and expect, like, if you want to be a millionaire, that you are going to just say, I put it out into the universe, and so now I'm going to go watch Netflix watch my shows on Netflix for the next 6 months and expect $1 million to show up in your bank account. So there's that. And I think a lot of people really need to remember that. So anyways, Liz, thank you so much for joining today and sharing your expertise on breaking free from limiting beliefs and cultivating a resilient mindset. I really appreciate, again, how you explained the visualization, like the tool, sitting down, like, what did you do well this past year? I think is so important to anchor in your wins, celebrate them, because over time, when you look back over, you're able to say, oh, wow, I did this, this, and this. If I hadn't have just stepped into it, despite that fear of whatever that fear was, I might never have experienced it, and I love that. And then what do you want to do more of? Like, future thinking, like, what could that look like? The possibilities, being open to that and projecting it into the future. And again, going further and writing yourself a future self letter. So I really love that. I really think that it's important that our viewers remember that limiting beliefs happens to everybody, no matter how successful you are. Everyone has limiting beliefs. We all have an inner critic, and it's just how much power you give to your inner critic. So I'm really excited that you came in. And another thing I also wanted to also lean into is that is part of like what the work I do as well. You know, Liz is, I love that your mindset is really a big piece of the puzzle, the mind, body, soul. That's the same for me as well. I feel like the whole body is so important. And what you're doing, definitely, the discussion we've had today is really aligns well with like what I'm doing as in my business. Self-alignment to me is my word around mindset. And that's about feeling deeply connected to your values, your purpose, your priorities in a way that guides your decisions and your actions. Because again, it comes down to how you think and feel and how you respond to your everyday experiences. And I know for high achieving women, self-alignment means integrating the drive for success with the things that matter most, whether it's family, whether it's their personal time for themselves, goal setting, whatever that looks like. And rather than success coming at the expense of fulfillment, self-alignment really serves as a foundational piece of the puzzle for clarity and confidence, helping you focus on what matters, to help support you both in your life and business. So again, and then you have the emotional resilience part, which again is another aspect to the mind, body, soul, which I believe really lends to this. It's the other piece. So I believe the puzzle is navigate your challenges with grace and responsibility, adaptability, staying centered, even when it feels chaotic, right? And it's essential, right, for managing highs and lows, because we have all lived demanding lifestyles. That's just the life we live now. People are going after more, striving for more. So we have to learn how to maintain our energy so we don't reach those burnout moments and helping ourselves to remain connected to our purpose. So yeah, together, self-alignment and emotional resilience, I believe, creates that foundation of joy and how you show up for your life. And these principles are central to the work I do with ambitious women like yourself out there in the community who are watching, and the type of work that Liz herself is doing with her clients. Again, Liz, I'm so grateful you joined me today. And I'm excited for our listeners. And if they have any questions, you know, that they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leslie, for providing this forum for us to have a chat and talk about and share the information and knowledge that we have so that we can impact many lives out there. So thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
providing this opportunity.
Oh, of course. And for those of you watching live or even watching the replay, if you've been feeling like self-doubt or fear is holding you back, know that you don't have to navigate this journey alone. You can send me a message. I'm ready for alignment, and I'll send you a link to book a complimentary wellness strategy session. And together we can explore strategies that align with your unique values and priorities, particularly when it comes to managing time and energy, with the chief aim to help you stay grounded, productive, and fulfilled. So your success reflects not just what you achieve, but also in how you feel along the way. And again, if anything that Liz has said has resonated with you and you really feel deeply connected to her message, definitely hit I'm going to get all of her information and make sure that it's also in the comments so that you can click on anything that she provides, that you can get direct contact with her and explore further what that could look like for you. Remember, the journey to breaking free from your limiting beliefs and stepping into alignment is not about perfection. It's about progress. Remember, progress is better than trying to do everything perfectly. Each step you take to honor your time, your energy, and your authentic self really is an act of self-care, self-love, and empowerment. Learn to trust your ability to realign with what matters and embrace the possibilities that come with a renewed sense of purpose. For you have the strength within you to create a life where success and joy coexist, and every step forward brings you. Thank you again, Liz, for your valuable insights. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.